Thank you. Order. Order. Thank you. Member statements. The member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May 17th, 1974 is a day that many Cambridge residents will never forget. It started as a beautiful Sunday day, but Mother Nature had other plans. On that fateful day 50 years ago, a flash flood swept through the city, literally swallowing up all of downtown Galt. I was a teenager at the time, and I remember my friends and I riding our bikes downtown when we witnessed the most incredible scenes. There was people in canoes, motorboats, rescuing people from their homes and from their businesses. There was cars literally floating down the streets. Fortunately, no deaths resulted from the flood, but it did cause more than $6 million in property damage. And that was a lot of money back in the 70s. Recently, the people of my riding gathered at the Fire Hall Museum to mark the 50th anniversary of the Great Flood of '74. They reminisced about what they saw and what happened on that devastating day. Speaker, the events of May 17th, 1974 were a once-in-a-lifetime experience for many people of Cambridge, and I thank the volunteers in my community who have worked hard to preserve the memories of that day. Thank you.
Member statements. The member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On May 18th, the Canadian Egyptian Heritage Association once again hosted Canada's largest Egyptian festival, the 6th annual Discover Egypt Festival at Celebration Square in Mississauga. Over 28,000 people gathered to enjoy Egyptian music, listen to entertaining performers, eat traditional food, and celebrate Egyptian culture. The following day, they visited the Egyptian Museum in Mississauga, where visitors had an opportunity to view many of the artifacts and learn about Egyptian history with a light and sound presentation on the exhibits on display. This was a great weekend for Egyptian Canadians to showcase their food, music, culture, and heritage to Canadians. I look forward to seeing the festival again next year. And of course, we all preparing for the Egyptian Heritage Month coming next month, approaching in July. On a related topic, I want to acknowledge the important work of Philip Batier Christian College, a school in Mississauga with over 420 students, which have been faithfully serving our Mississauga community for over 25 years. Throughout this time, they have educated more than 10,000 students. We celebrated their Silver Jubilee last week by watching a lovely performance by their students at the Living Arts Centre and enjoying gala dinner. I am happy to have watched and supported their resilience and success over years. I thank them for their work supporting Egyptian, Arabic, and Coptic communities in Mississauga. They will soon be opening a second campus in Ottawa, and I wish them well for the next 25 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. That concludes our member statements. Introduction of visitors. I recognize the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Always pleased to have former municipal colleagues in the House, and today is a great day to do that. Peter Kelly, who's the Mayor of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, is here, and former Councillor Barb Bridgman, who's also a great community champion, and I welcome them to Queen's Park.
Thank you very much. Introduction of visitors. The member for Toronto Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it's my pleasure to welcome Laura Walton, President of the Ontario Federation of Labour, and Joe Tagani, President of Ontario School Board Council of Unions. Welcome to the Legislature.
The member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce good friends Tracy Burrows, Dunford, and Nancy Porteous. They're heat pump champions, and they're here to celebrate all the heat pump air conditioners we have in the building that are 4 times more efficient. Thank you, Gordon Drive, for coming and celebrating heat pumps with us today.
Member for Brantford Brant.
Thank you, Speaker. It's great to see the galleries full of so many guests today, but I specifically would like to welcome Chief Sherry Lynn Hill, Councillors Dean Hill and Elena Van Every, and Chief of Staff Linda Parker from the Six Nations the Grand River Elected Council. Welcome to the Legislature.
Member for Humber River Black Creek.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm very proud to welcome again Fikayo Aderoju and his board members from Project Impacting Lives, including Rachel Kasuja, Neema Raji, Lucky Oshunbi, Kelly Mbatogu, Jada McKenzie, Kimberly Okafor, Tofunmi Olowogorioye, Oluwafeyikemi Olushoga, Lorenzo Baitwa, Tony Bodunrin, Chikodili Odinakachukwu, and Simi Olomofe. Welcome to Queen's Park.
The Minister of Education.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to welcome the Ontario Association of Parents in Catholic Education. They are celebrating a banner year, 85 years. Congratulations and welcome to the Legislature of Ontario.
The member for Sudbury.
I want to welcome friends from CUPE. Fred Hahn is here, Yolanda McLean, and Janice Folk Dawson. Janice, you remember, Speaker, was the former Executive Vice President and Chair of Federation of Labour. Welcome to Queen's Park.
The member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Morning, Speaker. It's my pleasure to welcome our page captain, Paige Armstrong from Chatham-Kent-Leamington, a grade 8 student at St. Ursula Catholic School in Chatham. Paige is supported by her mother, 28-year registered nurse Laura Ann Armstrong, and her brother Richard. Welcome to Queen's Park. Thank you.
The member for Spadina, Fort York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to welcome to the House Will Trefiak. He's a cybersecurity and privacy consultant. Welcome to your House.
The member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. This morning I have the pleasure of welcoming St. Clement's School, who is visiting from my riding. Their teacher, Elizabeth Boyden, Rose Keenan, Covenant Essachime, Maya Sonia de Pellegrin Overgard, Tala Abdo, Alison Chang, Haley Finkelstein, Cassidy Bryce, and Jocelyn Chen. Thank you.
The member for Kiiwetinoong.
Miigwech, Speaker. I'm so honored to welcome my mom in the House. And it's a special day. It's her birthday today. She's 79 today.
the agreement of the House, we'll continue with introduction of visitors. Goes without saying, perhaps. The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Good morning. And on behalf of everybody here in the official opposition, NDP, I want to welcome everybody who's here joining us from all across Ontario today for a very historic occasion. I want to particularly recognize all the First Nations leaders, chiefs, elders, young people, dignitaries, and of course the family of our dear friend and Deputy Leader Sol Mamakwa to the House. Wachia Miigwech, Gabishayeg.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming to Ontario here at the legislature.
Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to welcome members from the Ontario Forest Industry Association joining us today. Ian Dunn, Mike Martell, Dan Bowes, and Rick Groves. Welcome to Queen's Park.
Thank you. That concludes our introduction of visitors for this morning. I will now ask our pages to assemble for their introductions. It is my pleasure to introduce this group of legislative pages. From the riding of Chatham-Kent-Leamington, Paige Armstrong. Yeah. From the riding of Milton, Archibald Coleman. From the riding of Oakville, Farrah Crawford. From Brampton East, Ishwan Dezay. From the riding of King Vaughan, Tristan Ellert. From Bruce Grey Owen Sound, James Elder. From Brampton North, Gurwash Gay. From Etobicoke Centre, Joseph Gomes. From Etobicoke Lakeshore, Farhan Haroun. From Brampton South, Maya Ha. From Thornhill, Riley Huang. From Kitchener South Hespeler, Jasnur Kaur. From Beaches East York, Hosanna Ledunu. From York Simcoe, Sophia McSweeney. From Dufferin-Caledon, Grace Malone. From Pickering-Uxbridge, Emily Nason. From Markham-Stouffville, Wesley Tam. From Scarborough Centre, Jessica Wu. From Don Valley West, Victoria Shong. And from Don Valley North, Ethan Jude. Please join me in welcoming this group of legislative pages. Going to recognize the member for Kiiwetinoong on a point of order.
Point of order, Speaker. If you seek it, you will find unanimous consent to allow me to speak for 10 minutes regarding the historic significance of recognizing Indigenous languages in this legislature.
Mr. Mamakwa is seeking the unanimous consent of the House to allow him to speak for 10 minutes regarding the historic significance of recognizing Indigenous languages in the legislature. Agreed? Agreed. Agreed. I recognize the member for Kiiwetinoong.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone present. I am very grateful, thankful for the opportunity to be able to speak my Anishininiimowin in Indigenous Ojibwe language in this legislature. I am speaking for those that couldn't use their language and also those people from Kiiwetinoong. Not only those from Kiiwetinoong, but for every Indigenous person in Ontario. We know that there is an Anishininiimowin Ojibwe language that is becoming extinct. The government years ago prohibited Anishininiimowin from being spoken. The language was taken from us by the arrival of the settlers and the colonization and residential school. The history that has removed the children from our ways of life. Sometimes even soap was used to wash their mouth for speaking their Anishininiimowin Ojibwe language. They were punished for speaking their own language. They were given manual labor for speaking in their own language in residential schools. So today I am very happy and thankful and proud. I just feel it's just almost like an immense feeling that I feel. I thank every one of you, my colleagues here in front of me and the back of me, my colleagues, I thank every one of you for supporting us in revitalizing our Indigenous and First Nation language, and also for the guests that are looking up from the lofts. It's a great event, a historic event. There's people here that represent our language. That's why I still speak this language myself. For my mom that's here, that's celebrating her birthday, she used to take me out into the wilderness, into the land, teaching me the language. That's why I'm able to speak my First Nations language, because of my mom. She taught me. And also other people, also the youth, the children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. They need to continue on in their First Nations language so that they can speak their own language. Everyone that's listening, we need to revitalize our First Nations language. Teach your children to speak their First Nations language and to be proud of it. It's almost been 6 years that I've been sitting in this chamber, in this legislature. 2 weeks ago, I went to Big Trout Lake. I met with an elder and I spoke with him, and I said to him, this is what I'm going to be doing in the next 2 weeks in the legislature, provincial legislature, to speak my native language. He told me, when I was listening to you, I can tell you're beginning to lose your language, your dialect, your Oji Cree language. I'm beginning to lose my own language. Even for the 6 years that I've been here, I'm slowly losing my Aboriginal language. He understood me. That elder understood me that I was losing my language, and I said thank you to him. And it's just such a great pleasure for me here now to be able to speak my Anishininiimowin First Nations language. This morning when I woke up, I received a text. Our Kiiwetinoong, the six that were jailed in 2008. This is the day that they were released from jail at that time when they were put in prison. The chief and councillors are here. They're sitting here with us that were jailed. And they're here with us in their land. They're not being prohibited or hindered. They are fighting for their land still, and they are slowly succeeding. And I am very happy that my mother's here also, that it's her birthday today. And also, I'm thinking about my late dad. He must be listening from on high today. He's hearing us today. Also, I'm going to say, I'm praying that there's permission for our language to be spoken in the legislature, that other legislatures in Canada, governments, will allow the same process that we are doing here today. In Ottawa also, that are sitting in the Ottawa legislatures, that they too will follow suit with this historic event of the Indigenous language being permitted to be spoken in this provincial legislature, Queen's Park. Very important. And also, in speaking Anishininiimowin Indigenous language, that's where my life comes from. As I speak my language, we feel secure and well in our land when we speak our own language. It's like we're one with the land. We receive strength in speaking our language, and it's like a healing medicine as we stand together, that we stand together as Indigenous people to continue fighting for our rights as First Nation people to speak our own native language. To work together, I would say to work together with all governments. In time past, we were told never to speak our own Indigenous language in the provincial legislature. We had a leader named Frank Birdie from Muskrat Dam that was told that they will never permit Indigenous language to be spoken in the provincial legislature. But today, it's allowed. It's a historical event. I'd like to say thank you to everyone, my colleagues, the elders, the youth, our non-native brothers that are here, the ladies, women, young people, elders. We appreciate coming for an attendance. Thank you for showing us the support for the change today. That's a healing moment we are in. And that's where our strength is in our language, our people, and our relationship to everything that is living. That is who we are and who will continue to be living in our good life, in our language. That's who we are. We will live the good life, and we will work together. We will all work together. Everyone that's listening, we will all work together. And this is just a historic event for me. I'm so thankful for allowing me to be able to speak my own Indigenous First Nations and Snabemowin language in this government legislature today. Thank you, every one of you, for such a great privilege and honor to be able to speak my First Nations Indigenous language. Sometimes it just overwhelms my heart today of what's happening. And that's all I'm going to say for now. And again, I'll say thank you to everyone who came from far away here today, and also everyone that's sitting here listening, permitting me to speak in my First Nations language. This is a great day. Thank you.
Miigwech.
Thank you.
It is now time for oral questions. I recognize the member for Kiiwetinoong.
Miigwech.
Thank you. Elder care and long-term care in Sulakaut and Kiiwetinoong is not meeting the needs of our communities. The lack of new long-term care beds in Sulakaut has led to emergency department and hospital beds being used by those who would otherwise be in the long-term care. Will Ontario ensure the elders of Kiiwetinoong have access to the care and resources they need? And that there will be funding provided to build the extended care.
To reply, the Minister of Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, some things are bigger than politics, and I believe that's one of those moments this morning. Miigwech to the honourable member for that question. Speaker, what's bigger than politics also is making sure that we take care of those who took care of us. I'm also honoured to see that the member's mother is here. Happy birthday to her. I can see how important, yes, I can see how important his mother is to the member, and Speaker, certainly no difference in my life. My mother's a senior now. We have to take care of them. There's a moral obligation to do that. And while we have a larger capital plan to build and redevelop 58,000 new spaces in Ontario, we understand there are unique challenges when it comes to rural northern areas, particularly when it comes to Indigenous communities, Speaker. That's why our government has specific programs catered towards Indigenous communities. I was just in Temiskaming Shores to announce 128 new spaces predominantly for the Indigenous communities. They're part of a larger plan, 18 projects associated with First Nations, Speaker, 997 new, 221 upgraded beds. But we're going to continue to work with that member to make sure we address the needs in Sioux Lookout.
Thank you. Community members in Sioux Lookout have organized sending letters, postcards, and petitions to this government. Not only the Aboriginal people of that community of Sioux Lookout, but also non-Aboriginal people. They have been sending letters, postcards, and petitions to the government. All of this advocacy just to ask this government to fulfill a promise that they themselves made. Speaker, waiting is not acceptable when the problem is getting worse. The 76 beds promised in 2018 will not meet the need of 100 beds needed in 2025. So the beds that were promised, the 76 beds promised 2018, are not met yet. Will this government please explain why these long-term beds in Sioux Lookout have been delayed for 6 years and counting?
Respond, Minister of Long-Term Care.
So the first thing I'll offer to the member opposite, I know this is a hugely important issue to that member. It is to me as well. Come to my office and we can go through the process together and the challenges that are facing the allocation of 76 that are outstanding. Now, Speaker, while we work on the challenge of Sioux Lookout, we have produced results when it comes to the Indigenous communities through long-term care, and I look to Niagara Falls, 32 new spaces, Toronto Centre, 128 new spaces. As I said, Speaker, 18 projects, 997 new spaces, 221 redeveloped spaces specifically for First Nations. I want to go back to Ms. Ming Shore, Speaker, when I was there, talking about Indigenous services delivered in native languages with culturally appropriate care. This is hugely important to me. I come from a culturally diverse background. I understand the importance of that in your life. Our seniors deserve to live out their golden years understanding, speaking the language that they spoke, eating the foods that they're accustomed to. This is hugely important to the Premier and to this government. Speaker, I commit to work with that member to make sure that we get this done for Sioux Lookout. Please come to my office. We'll continue this journey along the path to building those 76 new spaces.
Speaker, I am joined today with my mother, Kiza. Elders like my mother and other elders should not have to wait 7 years to access a long-term care bed in Sioux Lookout. The system is failing them. It is not too late for this government to finally expand the long-term care facility that people across Kiiwetinoong have been waiting for far too long already. Will the government finally come through on their 2018 promise to create 76 more long-term care beds in Sioux Lookout? When?
To reply, the Premier.
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, folks wondered what I was saying to you, Saul, and sorry for using your first name, but this is a different situation. I had you in my office yesterday, told you how proud I am of you, how you're blazing a new trail, you know, and no one's ever done this, what you're doing today. And I just want to tell you that how proud I am of you, how proud everyone here in the legislature, how proud everyone in the First Nations. And I appreciate your passion in Sioux Lookout. I went up to Sioux Lookout, and you remember I went up there, and I committed that I'm going to build that long-term care home. I'm committing today, in the public, we will be building those beds. We'll be building a home for Sioux Lookout. So thank you.
Miigwech. The next question, I recognize the Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Speaker, it is indeed a historic day here in the legislature. I want to use this opportunity to raise another issue of great concern to so many people across this province. And this question is for the Minister of Environment. Yesterday, the opposition deputy leader, the member from Kiiwetinoong, and I asked this government questions about the ongoing mercury poisoning of the people of Grassy Narrows First Nations. The Minister of the Environment answered that there was going to be a meeting today to discuss the findings. So my question is, can the minister share details with this House on the scope of that meeting?
Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
Thank you, Speaker. And as I mentioned yesterday about the meeting taking place today, one of the things that we also need to reflect upon is the fact that the first order of business for this government, one of our first acts when we formed government in 2018, was to correct a wrong. And that wrong was the issue that is being in question today. One of our first acts back in 2018 was to index the mercury benefit payments for people who had not seen increases for inflation in as many as 30 years, Speaker. We're committed to continuing to correct that wrong, and as a result, the people saw their monthly payment amounts more than double beginning of November 2018, in addition to the retroactive payments. We know that there is no quick fix or no quick solution, and many of these issues are historic, complex, and multi-jurisdictional. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, Speaker, but we're dedicated to achieving progress on these issues.
A supplementary question.
Well, Speaker, I just want to point out it has been decades since the first mercury was dumped downriver of Grassy Narrows. Now, generations have been left to experience the devastating effects of mercury poisoning, and they want answers, Speaker, and they deserve them. The people of Ontario want action on their behalf. So I'm going to ask the minister more specifically, will the Premier be in attendance at that meeting today? Will the minister, what other members of Cabinet will be at that meeting, and how long do the people of Grassy Narrows have to wait?
To respond, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
Thank you, Speaker. And we take the challenges faced by the people of Grassy Narrows and Kiiwetinoong very seriously, and we want to achieve real progress in developing solutions that are led to improve the outcomes and create prosperity, health, and strong communities for the people who live there. If you look at June 2022, the Mercury Disability Board marked the opening of a new clinical space in Kenora, along with the successive launch of reformed achievement clinics. But Speaker, as I mentioned, more work needs to be done, and that is why our government remains committed to working with Indigenous communities towards remediation of mercury contamination in the English and Wagagoon rivers. As I mentioned, we have committed to several studies, many of them Indigenous-led studies. We're following those recommendations. There's a meeting with experts in the panel that will be later today, and we'll continue to meet later this week as we move forward on progress on this issue.
Thank you. The final supplementary.
Speaker, I would have hoped to hear from the minister that the Premier, that the ministers, that somebody else from Cabinet was going to be attending that meeting. I mean, meeting after meeting after meeting. Come on! People are being poisoned. Children, elders are being poisoned. I got to tell you, Speaker, if this was happening anywhere else in the province of Ontario,